Welcome to Let's Talk Coronavirus. It's been a year edition. It hasn't been a whole year, has it, Ron?
It hasn't been quite a whole year, but it feels like it's been a year.
Well, it feels like it's been even longer than a year because pandemic time.
True.
I mean,
true.
It's like dog years.
Dog years, yes. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Coronavirus. We're here to talk about vaccines again. I'm Rachel Bergstrom. I am an associate professor of biology. I also teach in the biochemistry, health and society programs, and I'm really interested in the data science and analytics program, and I advise for that group. And I'm here with my trusty, wonderful co-host,
Ron Watson. This is me. I'm Ron Watson, also an associate professor but not of biology, of political science and health and society, which is our public health program. I am the chair currently of the health and society program. And my interest here, beyond keeping all of you all healthy, is the public health and policy aspects of this whole thing. So yeah, that's me. I'm here. Hi.
And today's special guest, as you might have seen in the publicity.
I mean, it's okay. I mean, make
it's
up
okay.
words. You're an academic. You can do whatever you
You're
want.
not an English major.
No,
We already made that clear. Right.
People, I've been living in my basement for the past year. It's just, it's hard. Anyhow, we have Tara Girard. Tara, tell us your new position on campus.
Yes. Hi, I'm Tara Girard. I am the Associate Dean for Recreation, Wellness, and Engagement. I'm formally known as the Health and Wellness Center Director. So right now, wearing both of those hats. Also a vested interest in keeping all of you healthy and happy. I'd like to throw happy in there too. Let's bring happy back. Let's have that be a 21, 22 thing. Let's bring happy back. Yeah.
That's wonderful. I love that. And just as an aside, for those of you who are planning on coming back to campus this fall, remember vaccination status information is due to Tara. This is the one that you're sending it to. So anyhow, well, a lot has happened since last time we were here. I think, Ron, I had a baby. So
yeah, wow.
Winner.
I grew a human. I got vaccinated. What are some of the highlights for you from this past year, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one to follow. I did not grow and then, feed a human being, but I did survive. I did that. I got my kids vaccinated, which is another, my teenage kids vaccinated.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it was a thing. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, not a whole lot other than like working constantly, but yeah, that's
the survival part of it is really important. How about you, Tara? You survived?
I survived. That feels like a major accomplishment right now, actually. I got a new job that I'm very excited about. Also got vaccinated. So that was thrilled and made it through relatively unscathed. So it does happen. You can make it through without a day in bed. I did it. Very happy about that. And yeah, working on keeping campus moving forward in every way that I have my hands into.
Well, that's excellent. I think it's been, for a lot of people, it's been a really hard year.
Yes.
And it's, I think one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about lately, especially after, I was on sabbatical this year, so I wasn't teaching, but I was involved in the campus in other ways, the advanced mentoring program. Very excited. But the disconnection was really hard, I think, for being disconnected from community, from family, from friends, and losing all sense of time, I think, within that was really, really hard. And, I also want to say something to the people who have lost somebody in this. I think one of the important things to recognize about this is that it took an incredible toll, not only on us as individuals, but on our communities through the people that we lost. I don't even know what to say about that other than, my sympathies, my heart goes out to the people who lost loved ones to the pandemic. And I think it's important for us to also with that recognize that we're not through it yet.
Nope.
Even though we want to bring back the happy, and I think we will. And even though we're I'm feeling weirdly optimistic. I mean, at this point last year, not weirdly optimistic.
Right,
weirdly
sure.
Just weird last year, just weird.
Yeah,
just weird. Yeah. But I think it's important for us to recognize that it's not over. And so we're going to start right there today. So yay! The pandemic is not over, folks. And how do we know that? We know that because we still have cases of COVID that are happening. And one of the most important things for us to recognize about this, well, two things that I want to point out about this. Number one, the Delta variant. We're going to talk a little bit about the Delta variant first. You might have heard about that, this new variant that's becoming widespread and is the dominant variant in a lot of places in the United States and in the world. And number two, the role of vaccination in prevention of severe disease and hospitalization and death. Rochelle Walensky, the new director of the CDC, made a statement the other day specifically about the vaccination question. And she said that this is quickly becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And what does that mean? It means that most of the people who are getting really, really sick are unvaccinated. And so it's important to think about that. So we'll come back to vaccines in just a minute. And I wanted to give you just a really quick intro to virus biology and talk about the Delta variant and why vaccination is the answer to this. Okay, so Ron, where can a virus replicate?
Where can it replicate? In your body, in your cells. It gets in there and it says, hey, you look like a nice little cell. Come here. And then it just, next thing you know, it's replicating all over the place.
Right. And it can only replicate
the neighborhood.
Yes, it picks your cell. So viruses are really interesting because unlike bacteria and funguses that cause other diseases, they don't grow on surfaces. Right. One of my pet peeves is that Lysol kills 99% of viruses. Viruses aren't alive, but viruses require a host cell in order to replicate. So if a virus is going to make a copy of itself, so it has to be in a cell, and it's got these cool things on the outside of the virus called spike proteins that help it get into the cell. So some of these terms might be familiar to you because you know about spike proteins because that's what the vaccine is based on. Yeah. So the spike proteins interact with your cell in a certain way. I like to think of it like Velcro. And that Velcro reaction gets the virus into your cells, and the virus does all sorts of biology in your cell with the things that your cells normally do to keep it cell survival. So in this process, it's going to make millions and millions of copies of the virus. And the photocopier of your cells is not perfect.
It's not perfect.
It is not perfect. And so what happens is every once in a while, a change is made to the genetic information of that virus. And that genetic information for that virus gives the virus its characteristics. So one of the things that you might have heard is that the Delta variant is more transmissible and more severe, just worse in general. And usually what those things mean is the transmission is going to be related to how easy it is for the virus to get from one person to the other. So that's transmission. And then the severity of the disease is based on your reaction to having the virus in your cells. And we call that the cytopathic effect. That's an effect of the virus actually replicating and then your immune system responding to that. So COVID is actually a combination of damage to your cells due to the virus that's replicating and your immune system trying to fight that. And in the case of the Delta variant, that's a worse combination than with the original Alpha variant. And so that's really important to know. So these are changes to the genetic information.
Did we lose sound on Rachel?
I think we did.
Are you back, Rachel?
Maybe. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay.
So what's great is that you got to the point. So here's the thing: the Delta variant is silent.
The meaning of life is.
I don't know where I got cut off, but the main point I was trying to make is that the Delta variant is due to the characteristics of the Delta variant are due to these changes to the genetic code. It can change a lot of different things about the virus. It can make that Velcro reaction much more sticky. That's one thing that we worry about. It can change how quickly.
She must be able to hear us. Well, I can't pick up on the biology of virology. Can you, Ron? Can you pick that up? Oh,
I mean, just a little, just a little bit, right? I mean, oh, there she is. She's back again. But Rachel, you were saying that it makes it stickier, right? I mean, this Velcro relationship, which I think is actually a really good analogy, right? So that's part of what happens with the Delta variant. And the consequences, of course, for our physical health are severe, more severe,
Yeah.
right? So
the more likely the virus is to get into your cells, the more likely it is to cause the damage that is associated with the disease.
Right.
And so it can change also how many viruses are required to cause the disease in you. So your infective dose could go down. It can cause you to shed a lot more viruses. So I could spread it to Tara and Ron more easily. And so altogether, these are kind of standard types of mutations that happen in a lot of different viruses. And so these are things that we pay attention to. And so when we think about the role of vaccination in preventing, the Delta variant from becoming even more of a problem, or from the development of new mutations, because that's just a part of life. When you're a virus, you mutate. It's what you do. Is to stop giving the virus the ability to have places to replicate. And so with vaccination, we can basically mobilize your immune system to put the stop to the virus getting into your cells and actually starting to replicate. If we stop the replication, we stop the mutation. If we stop the mutation, we stop the emergence of new variants. And that's really one of the things that we're thinking about a lot with the vaccination. So,
and Rachel, let me jump in here for a second. I mean, this is perhaps the best public service announcement that you could have around this, right? Is that if you want to help to bring this horrific tragedy to a close, one of the best things you can do is give the virus, remember, viruses are not alive, right? So to give it nowhere for that machinery to sort of find a way to replicate itself, right? And that's why vaccination is so absolutely critical. It's not really about anything else except to prevent it from being able to create these mistakes to go, oops, oh, wow, that mistake works better. And then the next thing you know, we have the hot spots that have once again, unfortunately, cropped up. And obviously the pain and suffering and of course, deaths that accompany it.
Yeah, and I think it's it really is that connection. There's a direct connection between the more people we have vaccinated, the lower the likelihood of having more variants come out and having more complications associated with it. Fun fact, actually, though, about this variant and these mutations, the majority of the mutations are not going to allow the virus to make more copies of itself. We call those deleterious mutations. The mutations that lead to the Delta variant and the other variants that we've been seeing are called beneficial mutations, which is really kind of crazy, right? Because the beneficial mutations for the viruses are deleterious for us. They're painful for us. But the deleterious, the bad mutations for the virus are actually good for us because it means that it doesn't cause harm. But in the end, all it takes is one really bad mutation, or in the case of Delta variant, it's multiple mutations, to really get a hold and get started going. Because once that one virus gets into a host cell, it can make millions of copies of itself. And even though the photocopying machine isn't perfect, it's still good enough to kind of keep that going. So
and just to bring this into real life for all of us, where you are seeing the high rates of Delta variant infection is in populations with a high unvaccinated rate. So this is where it all comes down to the beginning and why it's so important for us to be a almost entirely vaccinated population on campus. It doesn't give the virus any place to land. It's kind of just the practical. I'm here for the practical knowledge.
I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And you're getting at one of the other new terms that I think most of us have heard of this year. Have you heard of herd immunity?
Oh my God, mind blown.
So good.
Blown.
So good.
So good.
People, you can tell that we haven't been around other people very much for the past year. Our jokes become even more dad joke-esque. Did you lose? I worry that
you're doing amazing things right now, Rachel. You are speaking without moving. It is absolute magic.
Superpowers, hashtag superpowers.
I'm worried about my internet connection here, folks. I'm really sorry about that. Anyhow, herd immunity is something that we've talked about a lot. And this idea of herd immunity is protecting, getting enough people who are immune through two different methods, by either getting the disease or by immunization through vaccination. That we can protect the people who cannot get vaccinated. And so Tara, I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about why people might not get vaccinated, because that is something that we have to take into consideration, you know, not just for Beloit College, but for the world, because first of all, access to vaccination, but what are some of the other things that play a role here?
Yeah, so when we decided to move forward with this vaccine requirement, it was really important that we honor the knowledge that there are people in our community who are unable to get vaccinated. And even though Rachel spoke to access, we're not talking about access, because if you are in an area where you do not have access to a vaccine, we will help you get one when you arrive to campus. We're going to kind of put access over here because we can fix that problem. We can solve that. We don't have an access issue in our local area. But there are people who are medically unable because of health conditions they have. It is dangerous, like absolutely dangerous for them to get vaccines for various reasons. They are unable to get vaccinated. So those are people that the rest of us getting vaccinated protects. In addition, the other primary reason that people are unable is for religious reasons. So for some people, vaccines are against their religious beliefs. So we want to honor that we acknowledge that in our community. And we do have a waiver pathway for people who are unable to get vaccinated.
Yeah, and I think that's important to think about. Every year, when I send out, every year before this, you know, our main vaccination push every year was the flu vaccine. And I talked a lot about in emails and, you know, waving my hands in front of classrooms and groups of people about why it's important to get vaccinated for influenza. The same reason is why we want everybody to be vaccinated for COVID, is because we really do have people in our community who are unable to be vaccinated for a variety of different reasons that we need to protect. And so when I thought about why would I get vaccinated, I thought about a few things. First of all, I trust the science. The science is powerfully good. We have a good history of vaccine development around the world, really. But the mRNA vaccines, and I got one of those, the mRNA vaccines are based on decades of research. And even though this is the first time we've seen an mRNA vaccine deployed, what we are seeing is that the science supports, the long-term science supports it, and our results that we're seeing in the population supported. Millions of people have been vaccinated at this point, and we are seeing a precipitous drop in infection. Number two, the reason that I got vaccinated, and I hope other people will get vaccinated, is I care about the other people around me. One of my first thoughts was, I can feel comfortable being around my parents who are over 65. And so I think that that's actually one of the things, Ron, that you and I talked about a little bit earlier, that we'd like to dive into, like, for people who have been vaccinated, what are some of the things that they've been thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, Rachel, so one of the things I took upon myself throughout all of this, especially when it became clear that there were really viable and good vaccines available, as I said, every time I meet someone who's vaccinated, I'm going to ask them how they feel, right? How they feel about taking the vaccination. And overwhelmingly, what you hear is a single word: relief.
Mhm.
They all keep talking about how relieved they are. Yeah, I just feel relieved. I'm relieved that I got it. And myself having taken it as well, I mean, obviously I felt the same way up to that point. And if you go back in the archives, I have talked about understanding people's reticence, right? Given that past vaccines have frequently, required 5 to 7 years of testing and a lot of different other issues. So I understood where people are coming from. But as you have rightly pointed out, I mean, this technology has also been researched for decades. And quite frankly, it now stands to become maybe the new way of doing vaccines, right? So you don't get some of those very, very rare but non-zero events, like people getting the disease that they're being vaccinated against. With an mRNA vaccine, that's not a thing anymore, right? It's not even a concern. It is literally impossible to get COVID from an mRNA vaccine. But at the same time, I think that it's that sense of relief for the very same reasons. You know that you're going to be around people who are elderly, people who, for a variety of different reasons, cannot take the vaccine, right? Some people who are immunocompromised in certain ways, or even folks who have decided, I just, I'm worried. This has become sort of a perfect way for me to demonstrate, like, look, this is real. I'm happier. I don't have to worry about getting my grandmother sick now. I don't have to worry about getting my mother sick when we go to visit. And it's just one of those places where, again, overwhelmingly, of now the dozens of people I've talked to, they all say, I just feel relieved. And that, given what we've gone through in this pandemic, may be more than reason enough to go ahead and get the vaccine.
And Tara, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what the difference for like, how are we looking at this fall for people who are vaccinated, who are able to be vaccinated?
Yeah, I would love to. And I since you two gave beautiful, eloquent reasons of humanity and empathy on why you are happy to be vaccinated, I'll give my version, which takes a different turn. Which is, I hate wearing masks. I hate wearing them. I hate it. I hate it. I express myself a lot with my face. I look a lot at other people's faces to see their expressions. And I desperately miss that human connection of seeing your face and watching your face react as I'm talking, being able to show you my face and my reactions as I'm talking, as we're sharing, as we're connecting. So I desperately miss that and missed giving it to people on a human, like, communication, connection, like, you're getting me, I'm watching your face, I'm seeing what's going on that you're not saying. That was really hard for me. I realized how much I relied on watching people's faces to kind of gauge what was going on with them. And in my work, I think that's really important. I'm gauging emotion and I'm gauging mood. And so, not that I don't feel the same way about those other things, but I'm so happy to, when I walk past a student and they can't hear me say hi and they can't see me smile at them if I'm on the phone or something, and I'm like, I'm smiling. Do you see my eyes?
Smiling with your eyes.
Right. And so I'm so happy to be able to do that. And I think I'm still kind of riding this little bit of, every time I leave my office, I have this like, where's my mask sort of feeling. And then I'm like, oh, I'm okay, but I'm still riding the joy of just being able to like smile at people and see them smile back at me. So that for me, and I'm saying it jokingly, selfish, sort of my own personal joy, but I really missed that connection with other humans. So I'm so happy to have that back on campus. And as you're saying, Rachel, so for fully vaccinated students and employees, Beloit College felt it was really important that we didn't make a policy that was only for students or only for employees. So it's the policy for all of campus. And that is that if you are fully vaccinated, meaning you've completed your vaccine series, whether that's a 1-dose or a 2-dose series. I'm not aware of anything that's more than a 2-dose at this point. I don't know if either of you are, even
Nope.
Other vaccines out of the country. So 1-dose or a 2-dose series, you finish your final shot, add 2 weeks to that date, because that's when you're considered to have the full immunity that you're going to get from that vaccine. And then you're considered fully vaccinated. So fully vaccinated people on campus can move through campus without a mask on. You don't have to wear a mask indoors. You don't have to wear a mask outdoors. Social distancing or physical distancing is still encouraged to some degree, but we're not requiring it. I think we're all still a little hesitant to sit shoulder to shoulder with people, but maybe elbow to elbow, spreading out a little bit that way. You don't have to go to routine COVID testing on campus. So testing will only be for fully vaccinated people. We would only test you if you were symptomatic. There are some breakthrough cases that are happening with variants and with other things. The vaccines are not 100%, they're high 90s. So we'll test for that. And so that's a really different way to exist on campus. And as Rachel said, you're also kind of protecting those who are unable to get vaccinated on campus. People who are unvaccinated on campus will have to continue to wear a mask in indoor locations and attend regular COVID testing every other week. So pretty much the same as spring and fall of this last academic year. I just want to point out too, because I've heard some concerns from people about, well, wow, aren't you kind of creating a separation or a division? It's going to be like everyone with a mask is, oh, you're unvaccinated, oh, you're vaccinated. And I don't think that's true on our campus, and I'm living it. I can tell you it's not true because I know people who are fully vaccinated and are still wearing a mask on campus. Rachel and I chatted today, and it was like, generally my rule, I'm not perfect about it, but if I approach a situation and someone's wearing a mask, I'll usually put a mask on. It's kind of how I look at it. And I know a lot of people are thinking about just using their mask in different ways, even if they're fully vaccinated. So I don't think it's going to be so easy to say you are, you aren't, you are, you aren't sort of thing.
Well, and that I think is actually one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I wanted to share my response to the idea of masking or not masking. To me, so I have 2 small children who cannot be vaccinated right now, and my 2-year-old is going to daycare and wears a mask at daycare. Any time that we go any place out in public, she's wearing a mask, and I always wear a mask with her when I'm with her, because I want to set a good example for her, and I want her to know that it's a safe thing to do and that it's really good. My infant cannot be masked, but I have a little thing that goes over her carrier, her car seat carrier. I call it her massive mask. And I put that over her when we're out, and I still wear a mask too. I, like Tara described, anytime other people are wearing a mask, I'm not questioning why they're wearing a mask. But my first instinct is to put on a mask, or at least just say, I'm happy to wear a mask. And I carry one with me at all times. And so thinking about how we can continue our self-care as community care idea within this new interstitial space that we're in between everybody not being vaccinated to some people being vaccinated to everybody who can be vaccinated being vaccinated. I think there's we have to think about a lot of compassion for ourselves and for the people that we're with, and how does mask wearing fit in with that? And so, Ron, how are you thinking about mask wearing now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm effectively the same. When I go to grocery stores or any other public spaces, yeah, I still wear a mask. And I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do in the fall. Probably if I know that I can keep my distance, I won't wear a mask. But just like you all, I always have one in my pocket. And if I know that I need to get in close to people to talk, look, I mean, I guess maybe a lot of people don't cop to this, but I occasionally spray it when I say it. And so it's one of the, just keeping it real, right? And I'm also not really interested in, having other people spray it when they say it, right? And so if I'm in a close conversation with someone, I actually, quite honestly, I prefer to wear a mask now.
You're not like,
right. I mean, look, exactly. Right? And then I can take the mask off and like wipe from here up. but but it's just, it's one of those things, right? Like the pandemic discipline that has been imposed on us. One of the things that it has really revealed is how much of the disease burden that we personally experience is really coming from these interactions, right? And I don't have a problem. Again, I'm an adult and I'm so many years old. So at the end of the day, my immune system has obviously had a chance to experiment and explore a whole lot of stuff. So I'm not really worried about stunting myself in any way. At this point, I'm happy to put a mask on. And I think that it's important to do so for the reasons that you already laid out. I couldn't live with myself if I knew that all I had to do was put a mask on and I didn't, and then I got someone else ill, right? Someone who was near me who wasn't vaccinated. And I also have a small child who is not eligible for vaccination. So when I think about that too, it's like, yeah, it's a pretty easy decision, and certainly not a burden in any meaningful sense, right? I mean, taking a piece of cloth that has some cool stuff written on it. I mean, come on.
All of my complaints seem really petty now. Thanks.
No,
I wore it. I'm really good about wearing it. I just hated it every second.
I mean, but that's okay, right? Because that's the variation that we've seen across this entire pandemic, right? And Tara, part of the thing that I will applaud you for, right, is that you took the choice instead of saying, like, unfortunately, like any number of people around me that I, sort of interacted with were like, it's not that bad. And, well, I'm a nurse. And so I know, and these sorts of things. I mean, I had people around me say things like this. And when I think about that compared to what would be, quite honestly, a much more responsible position, is like, look, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable for me. But it is a discomfort that is quite literally potentially saving people's lives and or their health and suffering, right? I mean, you made the right choice around that, and it's okay. I mean, as you well know, when we interact now, it's like, Tara, right?
Finally,
and that's fine. But that comes with the knowledge that we are both fully vaccinated, and if there is another variant that's going to jump on us, and here's the other thing, folks. When you have that, if you happen to get a breakthrough case, guess what? The evidence suggests that any illness that you get will be much reduced compared to anything that would have happened had you not been vaccinated. So that's another one of these gigantic pluses from being vaccinated. But, to know that that's more sort of stochastic, more random than anything else, rather than, but that's because I know your status. We don't know everyone's status. And I think it behooves us to be caring and compassionate in that way.
And within that, I wanted to talk quickly about this idea of breakthrough cases. What does that actually mean? And the definition there is just, if you're vaccinated, Tara mentioned that it's not 100% effective at preventing disease. But what we have seen is that in the trials, that the clinical trials that happened before we got the emergency use authorization, which is what all of the vaccines in the United States are running under right now. It's an emergency use authorization in EUA. My dogs are saying hi. But in those trials, there were some cases of people who had been vaccinated who got the disease, but it was not severe. There was no hospitalizations and no deaths associated with the group that had been vaccinated. And so breakthrough cases do happen. My dog is clearly unhappy about
has an opinion about this, yeah.
Yes. But breakthrough cases do happen, but for the most part, it's not severe at all, and it's not associated with hospitalization and death in general.
Can I jump in on this? Because this is something I feel so strongly about in talking to people about that when they say it doesn't even really work all the way or something. And so my thought is always, having worked in healthcare most of my adult life, getting sick is part of being alive. It's just, that Ron, you mentioned something about your immune system has been tested a lot. Like, that's how immune systems learn. They get sick, they learn, then they know for next time. And so this idea that why bother if you still might get sick, it's ridiculous to me. It's like no vaccine, I don't think, or almost no vaccine is 100%. I don't think there are any, right? And so, right, it's always going to happen. And part of being alive is getting sick and your immune system learning, but not part of being alive is going into the hospital in an ICU, being intubated and potentially dying. And so when you take that out of the equation, this becomes a seasonal flu sort of thing, or less, worse, a seasonal cold sort of thing. Yeah, a cold, which is where the direction of this needs to go. So yeah, I just wanted to pick up on that because it's something I'm saying all the time. I'm like, being sick is part of being alive. We can handle that, little things that happen if we take the severity of the outcomes out of the equation.
I think that's a great way of putting it, Tara, and recognizing that it's not getting rid of the disease entirely. It's making it something that we can live with. Yep. And I think we've seen this in the past. One that I talk about all the time in my emerging diseases class is HIV. HIV, which is actually where the decades of research for mRNA vaccines kind of started from. They're still working on an HIV vaccine, but mRNA vaccine technology kind of started from that search. So HIV has been around since the early 80s, much longer than that actually, but became a pandemic around then. But now when I ask my students in class what they know about, like what's their feeling around HIV, it's kind of, it's severe, but it's manageable. Whereas when I was in college, it was still pretty much a death sentence. And so we've seen this happen with other diseases as well, that we learn to manage them. People still get HIV, people still live with HIV, but we have the ability to manage it to the point of it being undetectable. And so in thinking about what is the end of this pandemic, the end of the pandemic isn't like the end of smallpox, which nobody gets smallpox ever anymore because we don't actually have smallpox in the population. It's not replicating in any cells anywhere. And so we stopped vaccinating for smallpox decades ago. We're not going to get there. I think, Tara, what you've described as COVID as a seasonal cold, that's kind of probably where we're headed.
Outcome. Yeah.
And that's not a bad outcome, I don't think. Right. But it requires that we do get enough people vaccinated so that we aren't having many outbreaks of severe disease in a lot of people. So I wanted to have a quick little side discussion with the two of you, actually, that's related to this.
Recipe sharing or?
Pardon?
Yeah. Oh, I said recipe sharing?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, let's get started.
What are you making for dinner? Right.
Yes. No, that's a different Facebook.
Oh, okay.
That's another time. I wanted to talk a little bit about the flu, because I'm wondering what this year of pandemic life and the outcomes of it on the flu, what that means for this coming year. Because I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there were like really no deaths from the flu in the United States.
Right. And not that many cases.
It's extraordinary, right? I mean, and then
like
when we look across the world. Yes.
Yeah, like 100 deaths in the United States.
Versus what, over 30,000 in a normal year, year.
Yes, and in like a really bad flu year, 100,000 deaths. Okay, 100. Okay, so we have a vaccine for the flu, and I don't think that it was this year everybody decided to go and get their flu vaccine. No. So, and I don't think it was everybody decided to all at once social distance. And they're both shaking their heads at me. They're both like.
I love this.
Terry, you got to take this one.
I mean, this takes me back to a year ago, really, in the fall. And because I am not a scientist, but I love, putting it all together. I always engage Ron in conversations, be like, what do you think of this? And what do you think of this? And And so I was so interested in this because there was so much talk about, you got to get vaccinated for the flu, you got to get vaccinated for the flu, which is great. But I just thought, I don't know. I don't see flu coming this year between everyone wearing masks. So these are some of the things that were fascinating to me and interesting changes over the past year. And so I have a kind of a bird's eye view of campus, specifically the students and kind of illness trends and what's going on with them. And the flu is definitely one of them. The funny thing is, it was like April and maybe even May that we saw a couple flu cases and mono cases, because I think that's everyone took their masks off because they were vaccinated. And then we were able to share germs again. And so when we were going into the fall a year ago, I thought, I don't think we're going to have a problem with flu because everyone's wearing masks. And it just seems like at the end of the day, that was it. The other thing that I think factors in there, at least from my perspective on campus, is people stayed home when they were sick. They stayed home. We did not have the traffic in the health and wellness center that we normally do of people just like, I don't feel good. You know, it's a cold, it's an upper respiratory infection, it's the flu, it's mono. They were staying home because that's what they were told to do. We'd maybe bring them in, we'd test them for COVID. Once that was negative, we send them back home. Your classes are online. If they aren't, you can, you know, your professors will work with you on that. And so it's just that culture shift. I think these are the things that were interesting to me about it, is the culture shift of how we treat illness and what we do when we're sick and what things should be treated at home. You don't need antibiotics. You don't need a doctor's appointment. You need to stay home, don't lick anyone, get some rest and drink some fluids, you know, and don't lick anyone. And that, like, you know, that stops it right there in its tracks. And then when people are out, they're wearing a mask. I mean, I loved this public health experiment. I loved this.
So Ron, I have a question for you related to this. What do you think people are going to do this year for flu season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so this is, so I've quite loved the idea of not getting the flu this year and not getting other sorts of severe colds and illness as well, right? I think that we have to accept that's going to now be over once we stop wearing masks, because, you know, we all know, and it's been known for a long time, right? It's that particulate that comes out of the achoo, choo, 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 right? Or the right? Like that's what, when you're like, oh, right? Like, right. I'm good. I think I dodged it. No, you didn't dodge the microscopic particles, right? They went right up your nose, and you know, and so that's definitely one of the realities that we're going to have to become more comfortable with. Of course, you know, we didn't notice it because the toll of COVID was so horrifying, right? I mean, some of you know, I've had these conversations about when we look back on the 1918 pandemic, right? The influenza scare, well, not scare, but I mean, global pandemic. When you look back there, you know, the U.S., we had about 640,000 deaths back then. Now, of course, it seemed more severe to people. Of course, it was, because the country was a lot smaller then, right? But, you know, in terms of the actual raw number, we had about the same from this one, right? And this is what is I think we were all sort of, you know, captured by the idea, this, oh my God, this is for real, this is terrible. That we didn't notice this side benefit and what that's of doing all the social distancing and the mask wearing. And that's the thing that I think that I don't want us to lose, right? Which is why this whole conversation that we had earlier about mask wearing and when you should do it, I think there's a new discipline that people need to really sort of impose on themselves. It's like, hey, if you're going into a place where you don't know anyone's status, you know, probably wearing a mask isn't the worst idea in the world, right? The other thing too is, if you go around our campus, you know, I compare this to like 2 years ago. You go around our campus, everywhere there's hand sanitizing stations everywhere that are foot operated. So it's perfect, right? And this too, you see everywhere. You go to Aldi, right? You walk into Aldi and they're like, hi, would you like to clean your filthy hands? Like, yes, I want to clean my disgusting hands.
Right.
And so there is this discipline that the pandemic has put in place that has helped to really reduce the cases of these other diseases. And of course, the bellwether for this was Australia and New Zealand, right? Because of course, winter is and the flu season is flipped, right? And they saw basically no cases. I think Australia said they saw one severe case of flu in the hospital, and New Zealand saw none. right? And so we kind of had a sense that this was going to be the case. But unfortunately, now that we are moving back into space, I think we need to be very careful to continue some of those basic forms of discipline that this terrifying and in some respects very, very tragic pandemic has imposed on us, because they actually are helping to keep us healthy in other ways as well.
Yeah, I think that's it's a little bit more pessimistic than I was thinking about this, Ron. Because honestly, I was like, I think that people are going to start wearing masks during flu season,
or when they're sick, when they have symptoms. And I think that's true, Rachel. I think you're right about that.
Yeah,
like I wake up, I'm going to wear my mask today. You know, better yet, I'm going to stay home. But if not, I'm going to wear my mask.
I mean, look, you all know, you both know I lived in Japan for a good chunk of my adult life, and that is the norm, right? The norm is when you have any kind of illness, you come in, you put the little white mask on, and you carry on handling whatever you need to handle. I hope that becomes a social custom here. I hope it does. Because, you know, it's super unfair if you think about it, right? You know, you're not feeling well, but you're like, but I got to get this assignment done. Right. Like, okay, right. But I don't have to get that assignment done. Why are you trying to mess with me? What did I do? Right? You know, hi, Ron.
My day.
How you doing? Like, no. Ew, no.
Well, maybe that definitely fits into the self-care as community care idea for going forward. And I think I was so impressed by how students, faculty, and staff responded to that call. And it showed itself in the way that people responded to the call to wear masks, in the ways that people showed up to get their testing done, and responded to the call to get tested. It showed up then in the dashboard on the website with the numbers of people who were quarantined, the number of cases that we had on campus. That's a direct result of the hard work of our community. And that comes back to, in these last little bits of time that we've got here, I want to bring it back to vaccination, that this is the next step. This is the next step in that really impressive, okay, this is a terrible metaphor. It's the next step in this really impressive journey that we're on to get out of the pandemic. But you know, in my sappy heart of hearts, I really think about it that way, that we are carrying one another through this. You carried each other through this to be on campus last year. You carried yourself through this, the people who stayed home and worked so hard to get through classes online and to flourish in those classes online. The faculty and the staff who kept the college moving forward, kept the day-to-day operations going through this, through wearing their masks, through washing their hands, through staying home when they were sick, through 80 bazillion hours on Zoom. People did this to get us to this point where we now are a community that has the opportunity to be vaccinated, to do the next thing, which is to come back together. And to, in that coming back together, to relearn how to be in community with one another. Our campus community has lost some people. And we have to rebuild ourselves together as a community of friends and family who are learning and living together on campus. And so I think that when we think about this as our home, as our family, as the community that we want to be a part of, we think of the roommates, we think of the office neighbors. I think of all of the students who I miss desperately. I think of my colleagues who I miss, popping into their office and telling them weird stories about my dogs, for example. In order to do this, even you know, even if we were to continue to mask the entire population, it's still worth it for us to get vaccinated. And so, so what does this mean? Practical, Tara, practical numbers. So let's say that I'm not vaccinated right now, and I'm like, okay, oh damn, time to get myself vaccinated. Tell me more about what my options are in the United States.
So there are 3 vaccines in the United States. Johnson and Johnson, or Janssen is the brand name of it, vaccine, which is the 1-dose vaccine. Had some concerns initially from some things that cropped up. Rachel, you can dig into that, or Ron, you can dig into that a little more, but I think they've pretty much decided that is safe, except for a very small segment of the population. I fit into that population who probably shouldn't get it, just to be extra cautious. Our student population is not part of that population. So if that's available to you, you should get it. Moderna, 2 shots, 4 weeks apart, and Pfizer, 2 shots, 3 weeks apart. I actually got Pfizer and did fine with it. Most of our campus population who got it on campus got Moderna. Moderna is likely what we will have available on campus. We have a lot of vaccine availability in our local community. My hope is to have it available on campus as well. Just giving more detail probably than anyone wants. The Moderna vaccines come in vials of 10, even though they're available in the community, we don't want to waste them. So we still try to kind of batch people into groups of 10 to do that. So my hope is we'll be doing that in the fall. If not, I mean, we have walking distance places you can get vaccinated in our community very easily right now. So that's good. And we can help you find that also to take care of that. So when you're thinking about dates and getting vaccinated for coming back to campus, think about that 2-week window, that 14 days. So if you want to show up on move-in day, if you're a first year and you want to show up on August 17th is the first move-in day, I think, 17th,
yeah.
Then you want to get your second vaccine, or if it's Johnson & Johnson, your only vaccine, by August 3rd. Then when you come on the 17th, you're going to turn your paper in and carry on with your business. If you're moving in later than that, you're not coming till the first day of classes, that's the 23rd. Go back 2 weeks. August 9th. You want to be sure you're getting that second one or the Johnson & Johnson on August 9th. And so this is how you can just hit the ground running and not worry about mask wearing or testing when you arrive on campus. If that timing isn't going to work out for you, we'll figure it out. If you got your first Moderna at home on August 20th and you couldn't get your second one because for whatever reasons, we'll help you find a place in the community to get that second one. And you'll just have to live life as an unvaccinated individual on campus until you were 2 weeks past that second shot. So it's just testing and mask wearing. And mask wearing is indoors. Outdoors, you don't have to wear a mask. So a couple ways to think about this depending on what's going on in your area. And the other thing that's really important, that if anyone is tuned in from other international locations, is we will definitely accept whatever is available in your area. We are not going to say, no, you just have to have ours. Whatever you can get, Covishield, I've seen in a few places. I know that one's coming through. I've seen some other ones coming from other countries. Whatever is available to you in your area, get that vaccine and we will accept that and you will be considered a vaccinated individual. So please take advantage of what is near. If there isn't anything available nearby, send me an email because I'm building a list of students who will need the vaccine when they get to campus. And that way we'll make sure we have that set up one way or another for you.
And I think that's a good thing to point out that we have 3 vaccines available to us in the United States. There are several others that are available in other countries. AstraZeneca, we've also heard a lot about in the United States on the news. And we haven't had that approved here yet, but it was being looked at. And so any vaccine that you can get that is approved in your locality for prevention of COVID, do it. And also remember that we want you, if you have not had the opportunity because you have not had access in your particular area, the college is, as Tara said, we are interested in helping you out. So make sure to contact Tara. We care about you, and this is one of the many different ways that we care about you. And so I hope that, oh, Ron, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things too is if you, like me, had a needle phobia when you were 18, 17, 18, one of the great things today about needles and the needle technology is that it has improved to the point where, and I do mean this, it doesn't feel like anything anymore. It feels like someone is just like pushing like a little bit on your skin. So if you can take someone going like just their finger like pushing here, you're done. It's extraordinary to me. I'll never get over it, right? I mean, for many years, it's like someone would give me a shot. I'm like, oh, mom, they're killing me inside, right? And it's just not that way anymore. It's my reaction is now embarrassing. So there's that.
No. My first one, I literally did not feel at all. My second one, I wanted to tell the person to give it. I was like, you weren't as good as the other guy. I was like, because they weren't.
I don't know what you guys are talking about because I felt both of them. So, but I was fine. I was fine. I mean, ultimately, it's about 30 seconds of pain for at least a year of protection is what they're suggesting right now. So these are good things to keep in mind. So we're in our last few minutes here. I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. It was so nice to see your faces, Ron and Tara. I have missed you. It was nice to have the opportunity to be a little bit geeky about vaccination. If anybody wants to, I could talk for probably about 6 more hours about this. So just, let me know. I do birthday parties. So we always end our Let's Talk Coronavirus with what you're looking forward to. And I'm going to go first because I'm talking right now. So what I'm really looking forward to is our new students and our returning students showing up on campus. I'm looking forward to meeting last year's first years because I was on sabbatical. Some of you I know through AMP. I'm looking forward to this year's first year students who are starting to pick classes tomorrow. Good luck. It'll go great. I'm looking forward to meeting them, and I'm looking forward to seeing the students who are returning. So I've stolen that from both of you. So your turn, Tara. What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, it's not going to be super original, but I think I am specifically looking forward to students being back on campus and seeing them all over the place outside. We have such great outdoor environment right now with picnic tables and the sand volleyball and Adirondack chairs and lights in the wall and lights and gazebos, and it's just such a beautiful campus. I cannot wait to walk around at lunch or walk around when I'm leaving and just see students all over the place outside and not have to be like, you need to spread out, pull your mask up. So I'm looking forward to not having to be the police as much as I had to, and just seeing students all over the place outside. I can't wait for that.
Ron.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You sort of stolen it all from me, both of you, right? But in addition to those things, what I'm really looking forward to is doing a little bit of travel with my family before things really heat up. But also super looking forward to meeting the students who to date I've only really gotten a chance to interact with online, right? Including our incoming class. So yeah, and looking forward to the next opportunity to hang out with and enjoy a variety of different adult drinks with my colleagues like Tara and Rachel and everyone else too. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Well, excellent. I'm also looking forward to Blizzard, peanut butter cup soon.
I was like, wow, that's that's dark.
No.
Sorry.
No.
The dairy
fall first.
But also I like snow. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to Emma Claire, who ran our background for us. We're very thankful because none of us know how to run the technology.
No.
And we look forward to seeing all of you on campus. And remember to get your vaccine status into Tara. And we'll see you again real soon.
To my email or to just healthcenter@beloit.edu. Send it there too, easy to remember.
Bye.